Salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around and talk with us as we discuss our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, all sorts of good stuff. And speaking of good stuff, Joey Bishop is here, and she's brought along Erin Cummings.
Joey Bishop is in a time out for being an ornery little bitch this morning.
Yeah, she's laying there.
Oh, now she just woke up.
Oh, yeah. Now she woke up wagging her tail. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm doing a lot better than my husband, who's actually having a birthday party at the dentist right now, getting 2 cavities drilled. So if everyone wants to head over to, or if anyone who would like to wants to head over to Twitter, I tagged Tom. It's Tommy Degnan, and if you want to wish him a happy birthday.
I thought you were about to give the address of his dentist's place. I thought if anybody wanted you.
Yes, if you happen to be walking down Beverly Drive right now in Beverly Hills, Dr. Aresta's office, 315.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yes. By the way,
yes,
I finally took your advice and started watching. Oh my gosh, County. Lovecraft Country, yes. And I knew that it was going to be wonderful, and already in 2 episodes, it has superseded my expectations. And, you know, I have to just say, Janae Smollett is so lovely and so incredibly talented in everything she does, no matter the decade, no matter the genre. You know, I first saw her in the WGN show Underground, which I watched because my friend Aisha Hines was in that, and it's just a phenomenal show. And then, you know, even regardless of what you want to say about whether you like Birds of Prey or not, she was really great in that. She's really good in everything she does. She shows up, she delivers. She's a smart actress. She's wonderful to watch, and I'm so happy to see her star really continuing to rise. And I think that we are just at the beginning of seeing all of the incredible things she's going to do throughout her hopefully very long career.
I'm going to assume you haven't caught up. You're not completely caught up.
I've only seen 2 episodes.
Okay, and you know, by the way, the second episode is my least favorite episode. It just gets better after that. Episode 2 is my least favorite, but they just had a new one we've been talking about on the show. So Anne's old sorority sister that she's friends with.
Of course, Anne was in a sorority.
Jamie Chung. She's the star of the whole episode. It was about her. And
actually, wow.
She was in episode 1 because, you know, in episode 1 when he's having the dream at the very beginning and there's that alien girl. Well, that's Jamie Chung, and she appears again. Actually,
wait, when he's in the room and he's fighting with someone?
Well, no, that's episode 2.
Right.
That's also Jamie. But in episode 1, during the opening scene of the opening dream sequence, when a giant alien comes down and there's that like green-skinned alien girl, that was also Jamie.
Oh, got
and
it.
then the entire latest episode is all about Jamie's character.
Oh,
and
wow.
So there's a lot, but the show, seriously, I almost gave up on the show after episode 2 because I really didn't like it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But it's been absolutely amazing ever since. Like I'm really hooked on this show now. It is completely weird and bonkers.
Well, I love that it's a period piece, which I'm always excited about. It's a period piece. It's also, you know, a political commentary, a historical drama, and a sci-fi reality, you know, science fiction show. I mean, it has a bit of horror. It's got action. It's got, it's great. I'm loving it.
A lot of stuff going for it. And
a lot of stuff.
Speaking of a lot of stuff, guys, we do have a lot of stuff to talk about here today. So here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start things off by talking about a couple of main topics. Now, in the second half of the show, we're going to take your live questions. You can get a live question on the show simply by going to the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video, or you can enter it manually, just streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's reasonable. And of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. But for now, let's get into those main questions. And how do we select our main questions here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question, hit submit, it's totally free, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. Oh, and by the way, one more thing I do want to mention, just in case you guys are interested, I know you can't always be in front of a YouTube channel ready to watch the John Campea Show. That's why you should subscribe to the audio-only version of the podcast, now also available on Amazon Podcasts, but it is available on your podcasting app of choice. Just go to your podcasting app of choice and search for the John Campea Show so you can listen to it while you're on the road, going to work, while you're at the gym, whatever it is you're doing, it'll be there for you. Okay, guys. With that down, let's get on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Raza Hyderabad. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Sorry about that, Raza. Hey, John. With Black Widow now being pushed all the way to May, I still can't believe they pushed it 6 months. I'm curious as to why Disney didn't do what they did for Mulan and give it a $30 price for Disney Plus. Allegedly, Disney is pleased with Mulan and it has made $230 million. Actually, it hasn't, and we talked about that yesterday. There is a lot of demand to put Black Widow on the service. Of course, it would make more money in theaters, but why do you think the decision was ultimately made? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, there have been a lot of people that have been wondering and speculating that Black Widow would ultimately, obviously with the whole pandemic going on and everything that's happening, that Black Widow would probably ultimately maybe even wind up on the Disney Plus streaming service. And that had been speculated, even though Disney had said, no, we're planning on making this thing theatrical. So when they announced the other day that they had moved it from November all the way to May, and then of course bumped the Eternals another 9 months into late 2021, amongst some other moves that Disney had to make, it caught some people, shouldn't have, but it did. It caught some people by surprise. Why did they ultimately decide not to put Black Widow on the streaming service? I mean, after all, we are going to get, supposedly, a bunch of MCU material on Disney Plus anyway, right? We're getting WandaVision, we're getting Falcon and Winter Soldier, we're getting Loki, we're getting Moon Knight, we're getting Ms. Marvel, we're getting a whole bunch of stuff. So why not just add to that and put Black Widow over there? The main reason Disney didn't do that is because of the main motivating factor behind most of the things that Disney and all corporations do. Money. They didn't make Black Widow for fun. I'm sure they had a lot of fun doing it. I'm sure it was a blast making it. They made Black Widow, just like every studio makes every single movie for money. And it's great that you can say, and by the way, I encourage you guys to go back and look what we were talking about yesterday. The guy, the company, the founder of the company that did the analytics that Yahoo based their report on, saying that Mulan made $230 million. The actual founder of the company that supplied the data said Yahoo misinterpreted our data. That's not how much it made. And anyway, we talked about that the other day. But there is money to be made if they wanted to suddenly put this on Disney Plus. Sure, there's money to be made. Here's the problem. You can get that money now, but it's going to be infinitely less than what a regular, that's the big asterisk, regular circumstance Black Widow theatrical release is going to make. It will make a finite amount of money compared to what it would make in theaters. But here's the part that a lot of people always overlook and forget. It's not like Disney or Warner Brothers or Paramount or anybody else has to choose between theatrical or digital streaming, because under normal circumstances, you get both. They get to have both. Guess what? We'll put it in theaters and make $700 million, and then we'll put it on digital streaming and make X amount of money on digital streaming as well. We get both. To kill the theatrical release, particularly of a movie like Black Widow, that's going to make obscene amount of money when it comes out, and once the circumstances are better, would be foolish, to say the least. Why is my phone not muted? Would be foolish, to say the least. Like, absolutely foolish, and it's not something you're going to see them do. So, ultimately, why didn't they put this thing, Aaron, on Disney Plus instead? Because money. That's why. I mean, it would be financial suicide for them to do so. And I think they learned from Mulan, understanding that, and again, we are living in the pandemic era, but they know now, even looking at the results they're getting from that Disney Plus experiment, they made infinitely less money than they would have if they could have just held on to it until we were back into normal circumstances, if we ever get there. Mm-hmm. And I think they've learned from that. But anyway, Aaron, when you look at this situation, you see that it looks like Disney is pretty committed. No, this thing's going theatrical. What do you think were some of the motivating factors behind that?
Well, yeah, it's exactly like you said. Money is the number one driver for all of these things. And when we talk about Black Widow specifically, Black Widow has been this movie that has ad nauseum for years of when is Black Widow going to get her own standalone film? That was the conversation for the longest time. Is she even going to get a standalone film? That was confirmed. Finally, they started making the film. And then when is it going to be released? Oh, but she's already dead. Will people still want to watch it? They have poured so much intellectual energy into developing this project, and they have poured a lot of money into the promotion of it already. So the idea that they would just simply go, oh well, just throw it on the streaming service, to, as you said, make such a small amount of money compared to what they would do if they brought it into a theatrical release. Waiting another 6 months is not going to cost them what it would cost them if they put it on the streaming platform. Right. And yes, you're right. If people are not familiar, if people have not heard the news about how the analytics were either misinterpreted or were wrong, or who depending on who you're talking to. It didn't make between 230 and 260 million. It actually, so far, Mulan has brought in between 60 and 90, and that's including the international dollars. So it has been a failed experiment by many counts. And so I understand completely their desire to push this to next year, wait until hopefully we're in a better environment. Because also, if you think about how many of these big blockbuster movies are in the can and are waiting, it's not that many, So a movie like Black Widow, a movie like The Eternals, those are movies that keep the lights on for these studios, which then allow them to make smaller films that don't have that are not going to have the same kind of box office draw. So it's a smart move for them to say, no, if we want to stay alive in the long term, it's better financially for us to wait 6 months, even though, yes, we are all suffering. We all want to watch it. Believe me, if it was on Disney Plus tomorrow, I would pay $30 to see it for sure. But I also understand their desire to wait for the ultimate big win. Right. And of course, enjoy their pie. Get to enjoy their pie needed to. And hopefully in May of 2021, we will all be in a world where we can go back to the movies and feel safe about it. And then, we brought up yesterday on the show, Aaron, that, pushing these films to 2021 so they can do better. Can theater survive without big movies? So that's another issue altogether. Well, I think we actually have a question about that later this afternoon. We probably do. So the question is for you guys. What do you think might be some of the other motivations besides the one that we've already talked about? Some of the motivations for Disney here to delay Black Widow that long instead of taking the other option, which is going ahead and putting it out on Disney Plus. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Ed H. And Ed H writes, "Hey, John, I read in The Hollywood Reporter that Zack Snyder's Justice League miniseries, I guess we're calling it that now, is going, well, it is. It's a miniseries. It's a limited series, is going to have some more physical shoots. Didn't they say specifically when the Snyder Cut was announced for HBO that they didn't need any more shooting and only needed some audio stuff?" Actually, yes, that's correct. They did. Weren't they selling that the movie was practically done already and just needed some VFX work? Exactly how unfinished is this thing? All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And so for those of you who missed it, an announcement kind of hidden away in a report about something else. The Hollywood Reporter kind of dropped that Warner Brothers is planning, or HBO, I guess we should say to be specific, is planning on going back and doing some reshoots and additional photography for all that kind of stuff. Now that, on one hand, can be kind of exciting. On the other hand, it can make some people scratch their heads a little bit because, well, wait a minute, we were told for so long. Well, first of all, everybody was insisting that the Snyder Cut movie was already done and it was already finished. I swear, you would not believe, since 2017. Oh, I know. Since 2007, I kept trying to tell people it's not finished. It is not ready to be released. And
how much shit I took from people about, yes, it is. It's done. It's completely done. Zack Snyder said it's done.
These are all people who have never actually made a movie.
Yeah, people who have never actually made a movie to understand that. But, one of the things that I said, like I remember the very first time I talked about the Snyder Cut, 2017, the very first time the issue came up. And one of the things we talked about on it was that Snyder has a cut. He actually screened his cut, but it was unfinished. But he screened his cut for the WB executives. And so what we have all been under the assumption of since they announced the Snyder Cut, and what the Vanity Fair report specifically said when they announced that HBO was picking up the Snyder Cut, what they specifically said to Vanity Fair was, yeah, we just got to finish the post-production on it. Like, Zack had shot everything he was going to shoot. This is Zack's original movie that Zack had originally shot. This is what we're getting. And the only thing we have left to do, they told Vanity Fair, was we're going to have to bring some of the actors back in to do some sound booth recording, just to record some dialogue, which you have to do all the time. I can recall several times you've had to go in to do additional ADR.
We literally, because we shot Spartacus in a tin can during the rainy season, every single line of dialogue in the entire show had to be ADR'd, which is why I'm really good at those beep, beep, beep cues.
There you go. So, I mean, that's a big thing. So a lot of us just all kind of assume that, okay, great, that makes sense that they have to do it. Now they're saying they're doing additional photography. There's two different ways of looking at this, all right? There's two different ways of looking at this. One kind of a critical way, but one kind of optimistic way. Let's cover the critical one first and get that out of the way. So exactly, you asked the question, exactly how unfinished has this thing actually been? Well, apparently it's been more unfinished than even I thought, because like I said, ever since 2017, that he had a cut, and we just figured all the photography was done, and they've been selling to us that we're getting what Zack originally shot. That's what the Zack Snyder cut was going to be of Justice League, what Zack originally shot. But now we're finding out that he didn't finish everything, that he didn't shoot everything, I should say, and that there is more stuff to shoot and all that kind of stuff. It's okay, that's one way of looking at it. I get that, because that's a fair observation. It's a fair observation. Let's look at it a little bit more optimistically, though. Let's look at this from a positive point of view, though. Number one, like most filmmakers, I think what you would find is, like most filmmakers, what you get now, what is totally standard for all big blockbusters now, it used to be back in the day, a whole bunch of years ago, that when you heard that a movie was going to do reshoots, there's something really wrong with the movie if they're doing reshoots. That's the way it used to be way back in the day. But today, in the last 5 years or more, Kevin Feige talks about this. Every big major movie now plans in advance for reshoots. It used to be you only did reshoots, which cost more money, which put you over budget if something was terribly wrong with the film. But today, big blockbusters, they schedule their movie, and even before they start shooting, they schedule time for reshoots later on so they can go back and, as they're editing the film and they feel like, ooh, we've got some better ideas now, let's make this even better. You do that. Understanding that, and that Justice League is one of those big tentpole blockbusters. Its box office results may not suggest that, but it is. It's one of the big blockbuster tentpole types of films. Had Zack Snyder not been removed from or left, whichever side of the story you want to believe, Justice League, at some point, Zack Snyder would have been given an opportunity before the release of the movie to go out and do some pickup shooting and to do some reshoots, just like every single other big major movie gets. So while it is a bit confusing that they kept proclaiming, oh no, it's done, it just needs the post effects work, that's all that's done. All we need to do is get some audio ADR done, and now they're doing reshoots. I get that. But under any normal circumstance, Zack Snyder would have been given an opportunity as the director of a bigger tentpole film to go back in and do some reshoots. So really, when you think about it, him now getting that opportunity is not out of the ballpark. I mean, that's not out of the ordinary. That's just kind of simple and standard. There's another optimistic way of looking at this, and that is this. Over the years, Zack Snyder has sat with this concept of what Justice League was going to look like, but he's had a couple of years now to maybe change some ideas, or maybe even come up with some better ideas. Hopefully not worse ones. but possibly better ideas. And coming up with better ideas, like, oh, you know what I was always going to do this in that scene, but 8 months ago, I came up with an idea that would work even better in that scene. He's now going to get an opportunity to maybe get in a Henry Cavill to do that one scene a little bit differently that to him will make the scene work better. If that's the case, then the ultimate end product for you and I who are going to watch this thing in its miniseries form is going to be a better product in the end. So yes, it is once again more signs that this movie was more unfinished than maybe we had even anticipated. But at the same time, it's not a big deal. Every tentpole film gets a chance to do reshoots. There's no real reason why this version of Justice League shouldn't also be given that opportunity. And it may actually work out for the better because maybe he's had some better ideas. Maybe he's improved upon some of his own concepts that he wants to try. It doesn't always work out, but at least he got that opportunity to do it. So, yeah, I agree. I'm with you. When I saw that they even have to do more shooting, my eyebrow raised, sure, just like everybody. But if you think about it, it's actually pretty reasonable. So I actually don't think this is much of a story. I think this is pretty reasonable. Anyway, Aaron, you've been involved in a lot of these things. I know you and I have talked about, sorry, I got to be out of town next week. I got to go do this, ADR or whatever reshoot. I don't know. But you see this, and having had your eye on this whole situation, how do you interpret this situation?
Okay, get ready, because I have a lot of things to say about this.
Okay.
So first of all, I called this months ago, and I'm not trying to be that asshole that's like, I said it, but I have to say, as soon as we were talking about it months ago about oh, it's totally finished. And yes, I agreed that it was not finished to the point where they had done color correcting and sound editing and sound mixing and all those other kind of things. But I also said there is zero possibility. There is no chance that they will not go in and reshoot or do any sort of additional photography.
You did.
That is
you did.
I said that is an impossibility. They're 100% going to go back and do it. And there's several reasons for that. Number one, and now that we're calling it a mini series, I did not realize that it was going to be broken up into 4 episodes.
Right.
Okay. That right there changes the entire thing, because number one, the way that we watch episodes is different from the way that we watch a movie. And so, yes, the Snyder Cut was originally 5 hours, I think. 4 hours. And so they're now breaking it up. Well, even though it's one long 4-hour narrative, you can't just have the middle of a scene. That would be like if all of a sudden, okay, the episode's over.
Mid-sentence.
Right. You wouldn't just end the episode with the end of a scene. You would actually, within each of those 4 episodes, you're going to have the story that has its traditional story arc, or it's going to have some cliffhanger, but they're not just going to stop an episode mid-scene or at the end of a scene that doesn't have a reason for the audience to continue watching. So that right there, they're going to have to create a little bit of a story arc within each of those 4 segments. That's number one. And number two, Zack Snyder, if you're watching, you're a fucking genius. I don't know why I muted mother on myself instead of the other one, but here's why. There's no way that Warner Brothers would have been like, yeah, let's get some enthusiasm over this Snyder Cut if they thought they were going to have to pour millions more dollars into doing all these additional reshoots. So sure, the company line, as far as not Warner Brothers, but from the Snyder crew was, oh my God, it's basically finished. And then all of a sudden the Snyder fans were like, Snyder Cut, because they gave the impression that the movie was essentially done. So by that point, when Warner Brothers then sees that there's this fever pitch, this excitement over the Snyder Cut, well, now we're willing to put some money into it because we see how bad people want it. But if they had an initial meeting with Zack Snyder and he goes, so yeah, I have most of it, but in order to really make it what I want, I'm going to need at least 30 to 40 million dollars more. They would have been like, no way.
Probably going to be more like 60 to 80 at this point.
Yeah. Well, at this point, though, because they know that the fans want it and because people are excited about it and because it has been this huge movement. I saw a bumper sticker with Release the Snyder Cut, a bumper sticker. It has become a movement. And so Warner Brothers would be crazy not to pump money into doing additional photography and reshoots. So, it's a great marketing ploy, if that's even what it was to essentially be like, oh yeah, totally finished, ready to go. You guys should really want this. Get everybody excited about it. And then Warner Brothers is just going to throw cash at the idea. But yes, there's and you're right when you say that reshoots used to be a bad thing, but now they're a good thing. I remember I did a pilot, and before the pickups were announced, I found out that I had to fly back to New York to do additional shooting, and we were all like, "Oh, that's great. That's great. That means that what they've seen, they really like, and they want to put more money into it." You don't put more money into doing additional photography or reshoots if you don't like what you have.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
You go, you know what? We have something really good here. We just need to fine tune a little bit of this. And another thing about this additional photography, 3 years is a long time with the way that technology and the world is rapidly moving and changing
exponentially.
I mean, we didn't have TikTok. Now maybe Superman will be doing a TikTok. I'm kidding. But
we almost don't have TikTok again now. But anyway,
very true. But that's the thing, is that even just in 3 years, I have no doubt that there were references that seem dated now, even only 3 years later. Certain things, we watch a movie that came out even, less than 10 years ago, and we go, oh, wow, that wouldn't play these days. And so I have a feeling that there probably were a few things that they also went, you know what, we can update that part a little bit from what we did 3 years ago that was really relevant then. So I think it's fantastic. I'm even more excited to see it. It'll be really great to see what was added in. And I know that the Cyclops story. Wait,
you saw Cyborg?
Cyborg, thank you. I keep wanting to say Cyclops. The Cyborg story is supposed to be more fleshed out. I know Ray Fisher is supposed to come in and do some additional photography as well.
That's another set of drama, whether that happens or not.
Yes, very true. But I'm excited to see. I know that was something that Zack Snyder was really passionate about. And so that'll be exciting to see how much of Cyborg is in Zack Snyder's reimagining of it as well.
By the way, I'll show you. I showed Rob last night. I got an email from somebody inside the situation with Justice League.
Oh.
And I shared it with Rob yesterday because I'm still delivering. I'll show it to you after we're done.
Okay.
Someone connected to it. But anyway. But the other thing is this. Right now, we don't know. Like this could be like 1 week of shoots. I mean, traditionally, sometimes they'll go and they'll have like 5 weeks of reshooting planned, and maybe it is 5 weeks, but we don't even know what the extent of it is yet. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. So ultimately, yeah, is it a little bit of an eyebrow raiser? Sure. But at the end of the day, like I said, if this had been under normal circumstances, he would have been given the opportunity to do reshoots anyway. So I don't think it's actually that big of a deal. So anyway, guys, what do you think? Jump down in the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our third and final main topic today. And our third and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Colton Gallo. And Colton Gallo writes, "Hey, John and crew. Hope you're doing well. I am doing well. Thank you very much. Did you see NATO's, that's the National Association of Theater Owners, for those of you who may not know, did you see NATO's response to Disney's delay on films like Black Widow and Eternals? They sound thankful that Disney didn't opt to send them to Disney Plus, but they outright admitted that they will likely have to close their doors again. What does this mean for the immediate and distant future of the film industry?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, so again, for those of you who may have missed it, yesterday, Disney did announce that big movies like, well, the more immediate one was Black Widow. Black Widow was supposed to come out in November, and it has now been bumped another 6 months, all the way to May of 2021. This does create a little bit of this creates a major catastrophe for the theaters. Because as we've been talking on the show, what is the benefit of, yay, we've opened the movie theaters again, but we got no movies to show? And it's great that they started opening up theaters with catalog movies like Lord of the Rings or Godfather. That's great to get some people back into the habit, but you can't sustain an industry for 6 months or more on those films. So what do? And one of the things that I suggested when we were doing the show the other day was, I got a feeling they're going to have to close the theaters again, If you don't have the movies there to bring in the audiences, there's no point in having the theaters open. You're just going to lose more money opening than you are if you just close them down. I mean, you're going to lose money either way, but there it is. In the midst of that, yesterday, the National Association of Theater Owners, the vice president there, and now the National Association of Theater Owners is kind of the collective group of all the movie theaters, practically all the movie theaters, but certainly all the big major chains. They're all a part of the North American Theaters Association. And one of their executives put out this statement. He said, "We need big movies. We'd hoped that Disney would hold on, but studios have to make their decisions based on their marketing spend and their marketing plan. Marketing money is so important and so key in all of this. If they aren't certain that theaters will be open, they're going to delay. We are gratified that they're moving and not going to Disney Plus. That's kind of an important statement. But until we get some of that certainty, we may be seeing theaters close back down again, because it's really tough. If you don't have new movies coming in to keep the lights on, to keep paying people, you lose money being closed, but you may end up losing more if you can't get audiences in and you're open." Make no mistake about it. When the executive NATO says, until we get some certainty, we may be seeing theaters close back down, that's him letting everybody know theaters are going to be closing back down. Mm-hmm. Maybe not all of them. You might see some theaters decide, you know what? No, we're a smaller one. We're doing okay. We're getting 20 people in per screening of Back to the Future. We can hold on. Maybe not all of them, but you're going to be seeing theaters close back down. You don't have an executive of something like NATO come out and put out into the ether the idea of we might have to close unless that's already been determined. So take that to the bank. You're going to see theaters that have reopened close back down. Maybe not all of them, but you're going to see a significant number of theaters in the coming months closing back down again. And then this whole process that we just went through of getting some of them to trickle back open, put out some catalog movies to get people, go into the habit of going to the movies again. Hell, we see Tenet closing in on $300 million, which is terrible for Tenet under normal circumstances. But hey, listen, given the current pandemic global situation, we got $300 million worth of people going through, but that's all going to be thrown away now. And I get it. It like he said, it's a tough situation the way it is, and everybody's just trying to do and make the best decisions they can. But now we're going to have to go through this whole process again. Whether that's in March or December, it's going to be tough. This is also going to have the additional ramification of now some movies that were holding on, like Dune, for example. They've been putting out some marketing dollars promoting their December release. But if Warner Brothers is looking and seeing, hey, now the theaters are talking about they've even put out public statements saying they're looking at closing theaters back down again, that might put the pressure on Warner Brothers to say, okay, you know what? We got to pull Dune. We got to bump Dune 3 or 4 or 5 months and then go through this restart process again in January or February. I mean, I don't know. There could be long-reaching ramifications on this, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Aaron, I thought this was a very tempered, balanced, common sense response that the guy from NATO put out. He said, listen, we were hoping Disney would keep the date, but we understand that they can't. We're grateful that they see the importance of keeping it theatrical. But the reality is we may be having to look at closing the doors again for a period of time. I thought it was a very, very good response, and really at the end of the day, not all that surprising, although startling nonetheless. Anyway, Aaron, you see this statement. What do you make of this situation?
Well, yes, surprising in that, as you said, in order for someone of that level of a company to make any public statement, unless it's something like flippantly off the cuff, which they immediately retract and pull back after talking to their stockholders, for him to make that kind of bold statement about the state of the theater industry shows that there has already been, they've already had those conversations, and they're facing the reality, and they're gently trying to prepare people for what is coming down the pipe. And it is very disappointing, and it's very sad, but I agree. I think that for the long-term survival of a lot of these theaters, in order to keep the possibility of being able to reopen in 2021 at some point, trying to struggle and keep them around today while having to pay all of their employees, that's going to ultimately end up costing them more money. So it does make sense to shutter the doors, furlough everyone so that the employees can get on unemployment or find, short-term jobs if there are any in those areas. And then wait until you actually have projects that are available to be screened in the theaters, which is another reason why, going back to the Black Widow conversation that we had, yes, we are all desperate to see these projects that we've been talking about for years, and we're so excited about them. But if we ultimately want for the theater industry to survive, keeping them off of platforms like Disney Plus and HBO Max at this point is really important. We all have to be a little bit more patient and go, all right, well, we're going to wait and see them in theaters and then flood back to the theaters as soon as it's safe and we're able to. You think about areas like Los Angeles and New York that have so many theaters. I mean, we are saturated with theaters. You throw a rock and you hit an AMC. Those areas are closing or have been closed down, but also in other markets where theaters have been able to open, perhaps not as many theaters need to stay open. Perhaps they can be consolidated. I'm not an economist. I don't necessarily project that my opinion on the right way to do this is the way to do it. But I do think that there is definitely some value in saying, okay, we're going to close down what we have in order to succeed in the long term. And it's a terrible situation all the way around, but all the more reason why we all individually have to do our part to, do the best thing to get through this. And I'm not going to be political.
Yeah, I mean,
wear a mask.
Yeah, one of the unfortunate things here too is that I think about Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers kind of, and Christopher Nolan put themselves in the position of being willing to be that first penguin in the water, to see if there are lion seals down there to eat us, and to be the first one to go in there in the hopes that, it would make some money, but also in the hopes that it would help kickstart the theater industry again. And really now, so them making between 250 and 300 million already, I don't see that as being all that bad, current circumstances considered.
Yeah, they're on slate to make probably by the end of the year at least 400.
Yeah, I think they'd probably get there. But that was a lot of their motivation was to also be that champion of the movie industry and to help the movie industry get going again. And now the real defeat for Tenet, unfortunately, is the fact that it volunteered to be that first penguin in the water for nothing. Because now we're in a situation that all the big movies, and we already saw Wonder Woman move, and now then Black Widow's now moved. I think it's inevitable we're going to see Dune move again. And ultimately what that means is that really, I thought, gutsy gesture on Warner Brothers' part to be willing to sacrifice and use their big, huge movie to help the industry get rolling again. Didn't work.
I don't think it was for nothing, though. Let's face it. If the first if the first penguin who jumps in the water does get eaten by the seal, then all the rest of the penguins know not to jump in the water. So we have learned something valuable, and also think about how long we have been talking about Tenet. And the fact that this is the only movie, the only new release that is in theaters. So I'm not saying that it's doing well. I'm not saying that it's doing better than it would have in a normal situation. But is it doing better than maybe it would have done if it had, say, been pushed to May 2021 and been released during the summer with all these other blockbusters to compete with? If Tenet is the only new release, which it won't be a new release by, March of next year, but if it's the only film that's still in theaters, as we said, the cumulative effects of this film are going to be pretty outstanding. And maybe keeping it in the theater is as one of the only newer films that you can see is ultimately going to be a better box office decision versus having it in the theater for 2 or 3 months and then pulling it and putting it on a streaming platform.
Right. Again, but that's if theaters stay open.
Right.
For
exactly.
them to stay in. Because it's true. If all the other movies move, but the theaters are still open, and it's like you want to go to the movies tonight, you got one choice. Tenet. It could make a decent amount of money over a longer period of time.
Well, can I get some clarification?
Closed. Sure.
Is it the North American Theaters Organization or the
National
Association. So it's just
owners.
the United States.
No, that's why the name is kind of weird. It's actually, there are many theater chains outside of the not all of them, but there are many theater chains outside of the United States that are also affiliated with NATO, even though it's called the National. So I don't know what.
But also, the impression that I got from his quote wasn't, we're shutting down all the theaters tomorrow. The impression that the impression that I got was, the theater you love in your town might be closing. But as this is, I mean, this is it's almost like an amoeba, this thing, you know, it's like one week it's hitting Texas really hard. The next week, Wisconsin is, you know, in the red. And as things continue to change, you know, in California alone, we are a huge state. And if you go outside of Sacramento, they have a very different situation with COVID than we do here in Los Angeles. So the same rules don't apply in every area.
Well, I don't think he's talking about every, like, I don't think he's saying everywhere. But here's the thing. When things are getting tough for a corporation, the PR line is always, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Everything is great. Yeah. That's always the PR, no matter how, like Ben Affleck was out as Batman. Warner Bros. No, Ben Affleck's not. I mean, that's the way companies go. For NATO to come out and actually say, yeah, we're probably going to have to see some.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see some closures.
Their members, a lot of their membership has already told them that they're planning on closing down. But it doesn't necessarily mean every movie theater is going to be closing down. And it certainly doesn't mean every theater is going to be closing down tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so it'll be just interesting to see how that sort of plays out. The question is, guys, for you, what do you think about it? I personally thought it was a very aware, a very common sense statement that they put out. I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, of course they want all the movies to still come out. But of course you got to understand that studios are trying to figure out what's best to do right now. It's a tough situation where there's no clear best idea right now. That's just the case. But how do you interpret all this? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all of that down and out of the way, we're now going to move on to your live comments and questions. And again, the best way to do it, the only way to do it, is to use the tip link in the top of the description of this video. That's streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. So with that down, let's start getting to these questions here, shall we? The first one we're going to start with comes to us. Let me just make sure I'm in the right spot, and I am. Comes to us from Captain Blue Pants, who writes, from what's left, Bond, Wonder Woman 84, which also got nudged, Dune, surely Dune is the riskier release to hold its spot. Being that it already has big marketing job to initiate newcomers, Bond and Wonder Woman 84, people know what they're getting. Surely Dune moves. Well, one of the advantages that Dune has is that it's not slated till for, like, what are we in right now? Mid to late September, October, November, December. I mean, it's still 3 months away. Dune is still 3 months away. It's got time. To me, though, the bigger threat is because it's got plenty of time. As a matter of fact, they just did a big trailer release, right? They made this big event of announcing the trailer and all that kind of stuff. They had all the stars on and talking about the movie. So they've already started that process. The thing to me that puts Dune's release date in danger is this statement from NATO saying, yeah, we may be closing theaters. Because if they're going to start closing theaters, well, then that's going to put the pressure on Warner Brothers to move Dune. I think that's going to be the bigger pressure there, Captain Blue Pants. All right, Mischievous Gremlin writes, and tips in $20. Thank you, Mischievous Gremlin, for supporting us on that level. Hey, John, I'm feeling kind of sad. I really thought 2020 couldn't be any worse, but today just proved it. Of course, this was written in yesterday after Black Widow got moved. I really wish somebody could come around and hit me with a Men in Black neuralizer so I can forget all about the year 2020. Word. Hopefully, 2021 is better. I mean, no, seriously. It's like every day that you think this year can't get any worse.
I know.
Guess
the
what?
locusts are coming.
Yeah, like any moment the plagues are gonna hit. It is absolutely nutty, and I'm with you on that, Mischievous Gremlin. 100%, my friend. All right, Simon writes, I disagree with Miss Lulu Wang respectfully, and I think that her statement of perspective is biased because if we take her logic, then Steven Spielberg should not have directed The Color Purple. And
or Amistad.
Or Amistad. That's my favorite Steven Spielberg film, actually, is Amistad. And that was an excellent depiction of period black culture. No, and I agree. And I think, we talked about this yesterday. I thought, and this would have been a great discussion for you because I know this would have been one you would have sank your teeth into, Aaron, but no, that's true. And I think you can go throughout and find a lot of great examples of stuff like that. To me, again, I think the perfect example is that of Ang Lee, and we talked about it yesterday. You know, because if you wanted to be pessimistic, you could look at Ang Lee and say, what does a guy born and raised in Taiwan know about gay American cowboys? And of course, he directed and won an Academy Award and had his picture nominated for Best Picture for Brokeback Mountain. Not only did he win Best Director and was his movie nominated for Best Picture, like 3 of his actors got acting nominations. Heath Ledger got nominated, Jake Gyllenhaal got nominated, and was it Michelle Williams? Was it Michelle Williams who also got nominated for that?
Was it Michelle Williams or Carrie Mulligan?
I think it was Carrie Mulligan. I always get those two confused.
Michelle Williams has a baby with Heath Ledger, and Carrie Mulligan looks like Michelle Williams, and I always get them confused. Yes, I do. I just I don't know why. When I think of Michelle Williams, I think of Greatest Showman. It's a little bit of blancos.
But yeah, I mean, it's true. That's why I think, great storytellers are great storytellers. And if they got something that they didn't grow up with, well, then you surround yourselves with consultants and writers and all that kind of stuff. And in the situation, you and I were talking about this before the show started, Aaron. In the situation of Lang Lang, this is actually based on his memoirs that he wrote. And Ron is working with him. Ron Howard is working with him.
Well, and he said Ron Howard's vision is the best vision to bring this to life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, as I was telling you, there's also been a big thing where a lot of studios and networks are saying if we have a queer character, then we only want queer actors to portray those characters. And a friend of mine is a casting director who said to me, he goes, the problem is that we're not allowed legally to ask someone if they identify as queer. So unless we go to their Instagram and it says in their bio that they are, LGBTQ, that they identify publicly as queer, we can't ask them. But the studio is saying that they only want us to cast someone who's queer. Otherwise, they may fear the backlash. And also, as you and I were talking off camera, it's like, all right, well, does that mean then that if only queer actors are playing queer roles, that only self-identified heterosexual actors are able to play heterosexual roles? And what kind of thing does that get into? And then also it gets into the problem of people who may personally identify as queer, but don't necessarily want their mother-in-law to know about their, then okay, well, why should someone be forced to out themselves in order to be able to book a job? But I think what's the bigger issue here is an overall lack of diversity, and that if there were as many opportunities for Asian directors to direct projects of all types, maybe it wouldn't be such a contentious thing of, well, why is it we only get these few things? We don't have that much to choose from. So why is another white man taking something away from, I understand that perspective.
I get it too.
I understand the overall perspective, because if I wanted to, come in and go, you know what? I think I'd like to write a movie that's all about, I don't know, Sojourner Truth. That's going to be the movie that I write and direct. That would be a little crazy. That's not to say that if there was a project that, I don't know, it doesn't matter. The point is, if there were an overall greater level of diversity and inclusion, period, we wouldn't be having as many of these issues.
Yep.
And that is ultimately the problem that we need to solve, is more people being able to play these roles, to direct these projects, to be part of these creative teams. One of the things with Mulan that's gotten a lot of backlash, even in China, is the fact that, yes, you have a predominantly Chinese cast, but the creative team was predominantly white. And so there were a lot of cultural things that did not resonate. So, there are a lot of problems with that. It is something that I think that finally we are starting to acknowledge, and acknowledging is the first step in it.
All right, let's move on. Next up, we've got an anonymous viewer writes, the Transformers movies would have been better if Optimus Prime directed them, not some guy who likes to blow stuff up. Well, now hold on a second. Listen, I'll be honest with you. Listen, unapologetically, I love the first Michael Bay Transformers movies. I love the first one. I thought it was really great. And I was actually one of the idiots who, when they announced Michael Bay was going to be directing the Transformers movie, I actually endorsed it. I was like, yeah, you know what? A guy who knows his explosions, that's not a bad thing for a movie like Transformers, as long as you can do all the other stuff too. And one of my guilty pleasure movies is Armageddon. So I'm like, I was all for it. And I love the first one. But yeah, it went to total crap bags after that. Like after the first one, that franchise just went to total crap bags. So, but then again, Optimus Prime could solve all the world's problems, okay? So that's maybe not the best example. All right, Michael Hamilton Jr. writes, hey, John, the Arrowverse has just been dealt a devastating blow. It's been announced that Supergirl will be getting canceled after 6 seasons. How does this affect the rest of the CW's DC shows? And we talked about this yesterday on yesterday's show. You know me, I am not a fan of that show. I think it's terrible, but it's an important show because it does have a lot of hardcore fans. And just like Arrow is the show that brought me into the Arrowverse, Supergirl is a show that brought a lot of other people into the Arrowverse. And that's great. And the only thing I really hated about that show was the way they treated Superman. But other than that, it just wasn't a show that was for me, but it was for a lot of other people. I think it signifies the real ending of an era, of really phase 1 of the Arrowverse. Because we already had Arrow end, and now that we're having another one of these original batch shows coming to an end, I think it really signifies the transition into phase 2, if you will, of where they're going. I mean, I'm not going to miss it, but a lot of other people are. And what did you didn't even watch Supergirl?
I know, I just have some really juicy Hollywood gossip and I can't tell you.
Are you serious?
I was warned to secrecy, but...
Can you tell me off camera?
I will say... I can't say anything.
All right, but can you tell me off camera? Can we talk about off camera?
Maybe. I just don't think we've seen the last of Supergirl.
No, okay. Well, that's interesting.
I didn't say anything.
All right. We'll talk about it later. All right, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Dimension 20CH writes, 1 of 2. John, I get the point you're trying to make at the start of your talk on the Lang Lang argument and even agree with you to an extent. However, I can't help but feel it's wrong to compare someone's culture and a job. It's not a fan... also, not a fan of the 18th century Supergirl. Sorry, we jumped thing. Not a fan. Again, I get your point that just because a storyteller hasn't gone through a certain thing doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to tell a story about it. It just feels like apples to oranges. I agree with your point. It's the example bugged me a bit. But here's the thing. Again, I think the whole thing about Ang Lee is an apples to apples comparison here. Mm-hmm. You're talking about Ron Howard, a guy who has not grown up in China, who's not a musician himself, telling the story about a Chinese musician. And there's social realities that have to play into that story that he did not experience himself growing up. Now let's juxtapose that against Ang Lee and whether it's Sense and Sensibility, or let's stick with the Brokeback Mountain one. You have the exact same scenario. A guy who was born and raised in a totally different environment, who himself is neither a cowboy nor gay, telling the story about American gay cowboys. Again, I do believe that is a perfect apples to apples example to the situation, where you have directors who were born and raised and grew up in a completely different cultural background, who do not identify with the specifics of what the story is about, be it a musician or being a gay cowboy, and yet are master storytellers and can, with the right scripts being written and all that kind of stuff, know how to breathe life into these stories, even if it's not things that they experience themselves. I believe I can't think of a better apples to apples scenario. I think it really is an apples to apples scenario. And would anybody suggest that Ang Lee should not have directed that film? Of course not. Now, the one argument to be made that Aaron alluded to a little bit earlier is that, look, we live in a world right now where outside of China, very, very few Chinese directors are being given opportunities to direct big Hollywood movies. And hell, if you got a movie that's about a Chinese kind of thing, isn't that a good opportunity to do that? I agree, yes, but I don't believe that we should be manufacturing creative segregation. I think that works counter to the goal of getting more diversity and more voices into our storytelling. creating creative segregation is actually going to be counterproductive, I believe, to doing that long run. So under a lot of circumstances, yes, if you're doing a movie about Captain Marvel, use that as an opportunity to allow more female directors to get in there and direct these films. If you're going to be telling a movie about Black Panther, use this as a great opportunity to allow great Black storytellers to step in and tell that story. But what I don't think we should be doing is now saying that there is a rule. Because if we start saying there's a rule, then a bunch of the mouth-breathing morons out there are going to say, well, if only women can direct the women-led movies, then they shouldn't be allowed to direct the men-led movies. You know the morons are going to say that. And you don't want to give morons ammunition.
Because Catherine Bigelow did a beautiful job.
Oh my God! Well, whether it's films, whether it's Detroit, which I thought was a tremendously underrated film, whether it's that little film that won her a directing Academy Award and won her
Hurt Locker,
best actor, best picture,
which was a completely male film.
Point Break. There wouldn't be a Fast and Furious if it wasn't for Point Break. By the way, I mean, yeah, of course. So I just think yes, we should see these movies as opportunities to do that, but not turn our backs to it if they're able to get one of the great directors of our era in Ron Howard, the guy who directed Apollo 13 and Backdraft, and so many other great films. I just think we should not make it exclusion, because one of the things I said on my show yesterday, Aaron, was the solution to ending this agenda of exclusion that we've had for the last 100 years.
Which has been 100% an agenda by Hollywood.
The answer to getting rid of this agenda of exclusion is not by creating a new exclusion.
Correct.
And that's just kind of my thing on that. So I see what you're saying, Dimension. I really do. I get what you're saying, and I agree to a point. But I do believe the Ang Lee and Ron Howard, that is an apples to apples comparison, and why I think that we need to be a little bit flexible on that. But anyway, what do I know? I'm just some idiot who watches movies. All right, let's move on here. Next one up. Tom Gemavir writes, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Tom. Supergirl was not canceled. Oh, yes, it was. It's ending. That's a nice way to put it. Yes, ratings had a part of it, but Melissa just had a baby and didn't want to be in Vancouver, and their contracts were also over, so they just didn't want to renew. It's not canceled. It's semantics, Tom. Listen, when the report says falling ratings and the studio had a part of that, let's call it what it is. It was canceled. You can say it's ending. You know what's ending? Supernatural. Supernatural had 15 years. They thought they were going to stop the show 3 separate times. But the ratings were just still good enough that they just wanted to keep going. Finally, after 15 years, they finally said, okay, let's draw this one to a close. Game of Thrones ended. It was the biggest rated show in the world, but that their story was done.
Seinfeld ended.
Seinfeld
Friends ended.
Yes.
And let's be
Supergirl
real.
was canceled.
Yeah. If the studio is making money, if they are getting ratings, it doesn't matter that she had a baby. Elaine on Seinfeld had 2 babies during the course of the 10 years that it ran, or however long it ran, and they just shot around it. Deborah Messing had babies on Will and Grace. People have babies all the time. Leslie Ann Brandt had a baby 2 weeks before they started filming the 2nd season of Lucifer. Okay, the baby has nothing to do with ending a show. If the show is making money, they will vomit money on the actors to keep them there.
And by the way, let's not act like let's call it getting ended. It's not ending. Let's say got ended. By the way, listen, this is a show still that when it's said and done had 6 seasons.
Yeah, that's a huge success.
How many shows make it to 6 seasons? Most shows don't make it past their pilot.
I have literally been a series regular on 5 different shows.
Okay,
and
let me see if I can pick some out here.
Okay.
A show which actually, by the way, had Chadwick Boseman on it.
Detroit 187. Okay, I was thinking about that on the way here. Detroit 187 had Chadwick Boseman. We had Tessa Thompson, Shangela.
And what's the name of the guy from Sopranos who was the lead of your show?
Oh, Michael Imperioli.
Yeah, yes, Michael Imperioli.
Yes, we were nominated for an NAACP award. We had some of. If you look down the list of our guest stars, it was like it was what are those things called? An incubator. It was an incubator
for
future talent. And I'm like, hey, where's my Marvel movie?
And you moved to Detroit for that show.
I did. I fell in love with Detroit.
One season. But I hope I'm not bringing up painful stuff. But then Astronaut Wives Club.
Which, by the way, had Ray Fisher in it as a guest star.
That's right. I was looking
Cyborg, you were in our show. Yeah.
So Detroit 187, Pan Am. Did that get a second season?
No, okay, but I wasn't a series regular. I did a big arc in that.
Series regular. But you've had but that just speaks to the fact that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I didn't like Supergirl. It's a show that got 6 seasons.
I know somebody that has literally been in
a success.
I have a friend who's been in 15 network pilots and not one of them has gotten picked up. Not one. And she's a pretty well-known actress. And she's like, she goes, I said, none of my shows make it a second season. She goes, at least they get on the air. At least, she goes, I've done 15 pilots. I was like, I don't even know how that's possible. So yes, any show. Yeah. Neither of us are dogging on the success of Supergirl. That is a massive success.
We're a comic book show. Daredevil got 3.
Yes, all of the people who were series regulars on that show, they will be financially set for the next 10 years. Their kids are going to college. They are fine. They will all go on other shows. But the reality, though, is that when you have this culture where you have shows like Supernatural that can go on for 15 seasons, if the ratings are there, that's what the network wants. And they will make sure to keep it on the air. But you know what? Hey, good for them. Good for all of them.
Yeah, I don't think there's look whether or not that I like the shows are relevant. Yeah. At the end of the day, you can't look at
canceled is not a 4-year. Canceled is not a 4-letter word.
Yeah,
it happens.
That's a nice way to put it. All right, let's see. Next up is conspiracy theorist writes. The Paramount consent decrees, which were just kind of killed, were lifted. The laws saying studios can't own theaters. It's actually went beyond. That's an oversimplification of what the Paramount decrees were, but that was one of the ramifications, saying that studios can't own theaters. Knowing that releasing their movies to theaters now means a financial loss, could studios also be trying to bankrupt theater companies to buy them for pennies on the dollar? No, and I'll tell you why. Because it's not about the cost of buying the theater chains. That's not the issue. See, like when we were first talking about the Paramount decrees being lifted, I said, the reason you're going to see studios not interested in owning, look, Disney owns the El Capitan Theater, a standalone classic theater in the heart of Hollywood that they hold some of their premieres at and they have some big events at and blah, blah. But you're not going to see, I believe, any studio interested in owning a nationwide theater chain. And it's not because of the initial cost of buying it, although that is incredibly prohibitive, especially when you consider that it's not just the theaters losing money right now, studios are hurting right now. Mm-hmm. But that's not the thing. Even though it's cost prohibitive, that's not the problem. The problem is operating a nationwide theater chain. The studios know, because the studios know how much they screw over the theaters. The studios know operating movie theaters is an expensive, zero margin type of endeavor. They don't want to have anything to do with that. Let the theaters take all those risks and do all that work and blah, blah, blah. And we'll just do contracts with them and blah, blah, blah. They don't want any part of that. And they're not wrong to feel that way. So it's not the initial cost of acquiring the theaters, although that is prohibitive. The real problem is the operation of the theaters. And that's the thing that the studios want nothing to do with. I mean, hey, look, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. But I remember the dude from Sony was even saying, why on earth would we want to be in that business?
Right.
So it's just something for us to consider. But you're not wrong in the fact that with the Paramount decrees lifted, it does create that opportunity that if, say, Warner Brothers wanted to buy Regal, there's no way they'd want to. But if they did, they could. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. All right, F Stormfront writes, with no new movies coming maybe for the rest of the year, and since there's no way to release a big movie successfully, what's the future of the channel? There's a chance we get no big movies until this time next year. You know, it's an interesting question. And I'll give you a little bit of inside baseball here. So you guys know that a while ago, like I basically shut the channel down, other than doing, mailbags every couple of days, which was fun, by the way. But we shut the channel down because I did have a lot of work I had to do in my documentary. I was really far behind on a lot of projects, but it was also part of the fact that if we don't have legitimate stuff to talk about, then there's not really a legitimate reason to do the show. I mean, the part of the quality of the show is that I believe we pick interesting topics to talk about. But if there's no movies coming out, like I remember when the lockdown started, I just wondered, like I seriously sat down with Ann and I looked at everything. I said, okay, maybe I can keep the show going for a month. After once the lockdown started.
You had a conversation with me and Rob about it. I remember that.
I did, saying, look, I just don't know what's going to happen here. I mean, if there's no because look what happened to ESPN. When there was no sports, ESPN, I mean, nobody was watching ESPN. I am shocked how much, because I forecasted about an 80% drop in what our viewership was going to be after 2 or 3 months of there being no new movies. We've suffered a bit of a drop because there's no movies. We've suffered about a 10 to 15% drop. And listen, that is a testimony to how great our viewers are and just how much and how hungry we are even just to talk about movies. But I'm not going to lie. I have thought about if this, for lack of a better term, movie desert that we're in right now continues to stretch on, I probably will shut at least the John Campea Show down for a few weeks again, and maybe just do mailbags and stuff. But we've been pretty lucky. I mean, there have been some days, like Aaron, I've had to call you on Wednesday nights and say, we're not doing a show tomorrow because there's nothing to talk about. There is literally no news for us to talk about tomorrow, and then we haven't done a show on a Thursday. And that happens, and I'm sure that's going to continue to happen, but it's still amazing to me how much news there has been for us to discuss. So the future of the channel is we're still moving ahead. If it looks like it's going to stretch on and I start getting weeks where I've got 2 or 3 days a week where there's just no topics to talk about, I might shut the channel. I might shut the John Campea Show down for a few weeks and still do like mailbags once in a while, but I'm evaluating that as we go.
Well, and also I think it's important to bring up the fact that it's not just movies that we talk about here. We also talk about television shows, and we talk about things that are happening behind the scenes. And right now, what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of stuff casting. I mean, Tom and I have been putting ourselves on tape I just had an audition for The Boys for a really cool new character that's going to be coming up that whether I get it or not, it's a really cool character that a lot of people are going to want to talk about once there's some news about that.
I'm so excited to talk about it. I'm so excited.
I haven't heard anything, so I don't think it's going to go any further, but whatever, that happens. You know, there's a lot of things that are, we just had a table read for the Will Smith movie that I was supposed to do in March. It's now, starting back up again. We just had a table read for that.
I totally forgot about that Will Smith movie that you're doing.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really great to be able to hear the whole script because obviously they didn't send us the script. We had to sign lots of NDAs and everything. But so we're starting to film that again. I know that Lucifer started shooting this week. There's a lot of the network shows are all back. A friend of mine who's working on The Flash is looking for apartments in London for when he's going to go over there to start doing pre-production for that. There's a lot of stuff that is actively either in pre-production or is actually filming right now. So there will be things to talk about, whether it's television shows that are coming back or new television shows that are coming out, or just all of the crazy things that, the reports that we get on projects that are actively casting and actively working on. So I think we will have a lot of things to talk about, and I'm remaining very optimistic. If we stayed on for the past 4 months, 6 months, however long we've been in hell, if we've been able to manage it through that, I think that we're going to be doing okay. There will always be fun things to talk about when it comes to Hollywood.
There's a great message in the live chat board from Vesna Lukic, who writes, "There's always a topic to talk about. Actors still tweet."
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Somebody's always saying something stupid.
Always saying something stupid. I generally don't like to talk about. That's a great comment, Vesna.
Maybe that's what we can have is like if you ever have days where you're
Tweet reviews. Let's look at celebrities' Twitter.
Maybe that's the thing. Maybe on Wednesday nights, if you say there's nothing to talk about, Aaron, the show is yours tomorrow. It'll literally like you can sleep in and I'll just come on. I'm like, here's the latest thing that someone said on Twitter that was really dumb. Let's discuss.
All right, Today in Dumb. That should be a daily segment on the show. Today in Dumb.
I don't think we would have enough time.
That's probably true. All right, sorry, falling behind here. Next up. Orange Hand writes, my big issue with this whole Lulu Wang thing is that her statements only give ammunition to the assholes. I was just saying this. Only give ammunition to the assholes who whine about SJWs and political correctness and wokeness and all their other colorful buzzwords because they hate diversity and inclusiveness. No, it's true. And that's why part of the thing I say, I think it's counterproductive. Like, you don't fight exclusion by creating new exclusion. You don't create openness by creating a new form of segregation. And the only reason I disagree, and Lulu is a masterful filmmaker. If you have not seen The Farewell, you absolutely must. I just fundamentally disagree with her position on this because I believe it's counterproductive to what she actually wants to see happen in Hollywood, what I actually want to see happen in Hollywood, what most decent, common sense people want to see happen in Hollywood. And I just think what she was proposing happens to be counterproductive to that. That's why I disagreed with her.
Well, anyway. You said that there were several directors that were in the conversation of getting this job, right? You said there was a committee of people. I mean,
I don't know how many directors were actually in the running,
I see. Okay.
But I know there was a group decision about who should direct it, but I don't know if there was a big what's the word I'm looking for? Pool, if you will, of what it was going to be. But anyway, again, I understand the notion that, use these types of movies as opportunities to start bringing in more diverse voices, but let's not say that's an exclusive rule.
Well, I just think that this is also just such a terrible example. Like, if you're going to choose a hill to die on, this is a terrible one to choose when you have the person whose life story is being told saying, I want Ron Howard to tell my life story. It's like, you know what? Scarlett Johansson can get mad as mad at me as she wants that I don't want her to play me in my life story. The role is played by Helen Mirren, period. Helen Mirren or Betty White. Those are the only two women I want telling my story. So sorry, ScarJo, you're just not going to play this tree.
What was the name of your little cheerleading squad? What was that called again?
I swear, I will stab you in the throat right now. If you dare, are you serious? Did you actually? I am literally going to come over
what did I do?
Wring your fucking neck. The Kilgore College Rangerettes are not a little cheerleading team.
That's it, the Rangerettes.
Look at this. Look, do you see the vein popping? Oh, my lighting's terrible here.
The Rangerettes.
Oh my God.
I swear. Sorry. Like, hey, at least I remembered you were part of this sorority.
It's not a sorority. They were the world's first precision dance drill team created in 1940 by Miss Gussie Nell Davis.
Little cheerleaders. That's what
we're not cheerleaders.
Okay, sorry. What
is that movie? Cheerleaders are like dancers with like having a spaz attack? No, they're dancers. Now I forget why I brought up the Rangerettes. Dancers.
What were we talking about?
I don't know. My amygdala's hijacked. I gotta go.
You called Helen Mirren or Betty White. I said, I can imagine your life story back in your Rangerette days and having Betty White, as is now, acting 20-year-old Erin with the Rangerettes or
Jesus, 20-year-old Erin. Whew, my poor mother.
Okay, let's move on here. Where are we?
That was fun.
That was fun. Oh yeah, every chance you get to choke John is fun. All right, where are we at here? I had a big jump here. Oh damn, where did we go? Where did we leave off? There's Jesse. There we are. Jesse writes, while it's not a perfect game, with all of the MCU films getting major pushes, at least I still have Marvel's Avengers game. Gameplay and graphics can be a bit glitchy, and the story has some weak points, but I feel like they really captured the heroes well. I haven't played the game. All I remember is leading up to the big trailer reveal for Marvel's Avengers game, they did this big trailer reveal, and everybody was all excited that they're doing a Marvel's Avengers game. And everybody expected to have Robert Downey Jr.'s likeness as Tony Stark, to have Chris Evans' likeness as Captain America. They were all expecting the movie's version of the Avengers. And I remember this great meme, Aaron, because then when they debuted the gameplay, they debuted the trailer for it, and like the characters in the game look nothing like the characters from the movies, which is fine. It's just that a lot of people were expecting that. Did you ever see the great Mel Brooks movie Spaceballs?
Are you crazy? Don't make me choke you out again, John.
I didn't want to.
Spaceballs is my it is the one movie that I saw. It is the only reference that I know of Star Wars.
Okay, well there you go.
So like when Tom finally made me watch the first Star Wars, I was like, when does Pizza the Hut come in? And he was like, okay, we got to get you to stop watching. When there was all that smoky air, when none of us could breathe in Los Angeles, all I wanted was a can of Perrier to just.
Playing it out, President.
Yes,
so,
of course I've seen Spaceballs.
The moment in Spaceballs when they're on their version of the Death Star and they think they've captured him, and the commander comes, no, we've captured you. It's like, you idiots, you captured their stunt doubles.
Yes.
I remember somebody put out a meme of the Marvel's Avengers game saying, with that meme saying, you idiots, you captured their stunt doubles. So no, I have not played the game yet myself. I have heard mixed things about it. Like I've got a friend of mine who plays it who's really into it. But I've heard a couple of mixed things about it. So I don't know. At some point, maybe I'll get around to trying that.
Speaking of games, if anybody out there, I know
where you're going with this. Yeah.
I am on a desperate quest to find the original Battlestar Galactica board game. It is what Tom wants for his birthday. I have been trying to find it. I found a couple on eBay, but if anybody else has the one out there that is in really good condition and you would like to sell it, please hit me up on Twitter. I am very, very, very interested.
I swear, the last 4 times I've seen Tom, at some point in the evening, hey, have you ever played the Battlestar Galactica original board game? I know. Brought that up before, Tom. Like he really
that game and all of the expansions. So
yeah, like
$8,000 later. Yeah, the Pegasus expansion is like $400.
I know, it's nuts for a board game. It's crazy.
Well, even like on eBay, the original, the cheapest that I found it is like $125, which I get it. Like if
Pegasus expansion is like $300 or $400.
Which I'm willing to pay $125 if you have it. It's gonna just hit me up.
Let us know. All right, let's go on here. Jesse writes. Also, if the upcoming Disney Plus series Ms. Marvel can make the character even half as charming and likable as she is in the game, it'll be a big win. I did see some gameplay footage that focused on Ms. Marvel. You're right, it was really charming, as a matter of fact. I was really surprised how much I ended up liking her inclusion after not really knowing much about her. Now, my wife Anne, actually read a bunch of Ms. Marvel with, what's the character's name? Kamala Khan? I think that's her name. Anyway. And Anne really liked it. I didn't read it myself, but I thought it was an interesting choice that they decided to do a Ms. Marvel show on Disney Plus when they announced it. When I saw that game footage, I got to admit, I'm with you. I was kind of won over. I'm like, you know what? This type of character could play really well in this series. So it really bumped up my excitement about it too. So that's a good observation. Captain Blue Pants writes, I get what you're saying about the low excitement and buzz after months and months and months of shows, films, etc., all being canceled, moved, and moved again. Then, of course, people are tempering their excitement. People are probably getting tired of the hype for nothing. Yeah, I mean, it's challenging. You know, I've had a lot of people yesterday, as a matter of fact, after they announced that Black Widow was being moved again, I got so many messages from people just saying, I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. Like, for me right now, movies are dead. And I get it. Like, because the longer it is, and you know, in my video, my thoughts on walks that I did, I said, you know what, movie-going atrophy is going to be a real thing. Like, you go 6 months without going to the movies, it's going to be difficult not just to get yourself into the habit of going to the movies again, it's going to be difficult to get up the excitement to go to the movies again.
Right.
And the longer you go, it becomes more and more of a challenge. And so, yeah, I get it, Captain Blue Pants. It's a tough thing. It's a really hard thing, but they're doing the best they can. Willow writes, I found the farewell to be so similar to my own experiences that it was almost eerie. I do wonder if such a personal story could have been told as well by somebody outside of the culture. However, Bertolucci made The Last Emperor, and that turned out well too. Listen, I can't talk enough about, because if you guys have watched my show for any period of time, and Aaron, I know I've talked to you about it, The Farewell is, I'm not going to say it's a top 10 movie of the past 5 years that I've seen, but I will say it is one of the top 10 probably most beautiful films. And I'm not talking cinematography, I'm just talking the story. It's beautiful. It makes your heart warm watching it. And by the time I left, you know, I was smiling and my wife was smiling, but her face was a mess because of the tears and all that kind of stuff. But she's also smiling, and it's charming, and it's such a great ending. The ending is so good. But yeah, guys, if you haven't had a chance to see The Farewell, didn't you go to see it at the Draft House? Didn't you tell me you went to see it at Draft House or something like that?
I haven't seen it.
No, it was another movie you went to go see at Draft House.
I miss the Alamo Draft House.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do. But seriously, guys, if you haven't had a chance, if anything out of this Lulu Wang thing is going to, at least I hope it raises awareness of her absolutely brilliant film. Go see it. It's the movie that made me go, why is everybody, Awkwafina is nothing. Why is everybody talking about her? Then I saw her in this and I'm like, holy shit, this girl can act. So yeah, do go and check it out. All right. Alan writes, hey, John, with more movies getting delayed recently, do you think this might open up the door for companies like Amazon or Apple to buy up movie theater chains? Apple could show Scorsese film there and paying $200 million for hashtag Orbit for Hum, hashtag Team Godzilla. Now, I was just saying a little bit earlier, Aaron, that I don't see, you know, major movie theater chain or major studios wanting the bother of trying to, because it's not what their expertise is. They don't know. But Amazon that could buy and sell Disney 10 times over.
Right.
Amazon, who is now in the physical retail space game. Actually, my wife, she's a big senior person of her official thing is senior something of physical launch. So she's right now overseeing the launch of Amazon stores and Amazon grocery stores.
Right.
And all that kind of stuff. They're into the physical space game. Apple, which is a $2 trillion company, they can buy and sell Disney maybe 15 times over. Apple is all about understanding running physical spaces and all that kind of stuff. They have more money than anybody should be allowed to have money. Word. So not only could somebody like outside of the traditional studio system, an Amazon and an Apple are actually, I would argue, well positioned and have the built-in expertise to know how to run physical presences, and they've got the money to burn to do it. So I actually think, listen, I would love to see AMC be bought up by Amazon, and you could still keep the name AMC, Amazon Movie Chain. There you go, right there. Amazon Movie Cinemas. Whatever, and I could just walk in. I don't have to buy my tickets in advance. Just flash my Amazon Prime barcode. Boop, there it is. Got my ticket in, get my seat. But I don't know, could you see Apple or Amazon maybe stepping in and maybe buying a major movie theater chain?
I can see Apple and or Amazon not only buying movie chains, but buying some of the studios as well. You know, Paramount has been struggling for a long time, and I could very easily see the entire Paramount lot being transformed into, you know, an Apple University. Isn't that what they usually call them? Like the campus, something like that. Yeah, I'm kind of on an Amazon strike right now, though. I until all of the employees of Amazon just get free health care. I'm like, come on, Jeff Bezos, come on. You could literally take one day of the amount of money that you make, and every single person who works for you could have the best health care in the world for absolutely no premiums. I don't even work for Amazon, and I want their employees to get that. But yeah, absolutely. They could 100. I mean, there's kind of, and especially since they don't seem to be getting any sort of pushback about the amount of money that they're making and the amount of ownership that they have. I thought that there was going to be some sort of antitrust commission doing something, but apparently they're not. So yeah, there's no telling what Amazon and Apple are going to own within the next 10 years. All Shop right. Local. Shop local.
Although I got to tell you, Ann and I just went to the main thing, the first project Amazon gave Ann, and I don't know how much I'm even allowed to talk about, but the first project that Amazon handed Ann was the project of getting their first actual Amazon physical grocery store launched.
You told me about that.
And
That
it's
sounds pretty
in,
cool.
not Westdale, I can't remember the name of the area in LA it's in. But anyway, and they just launched last week.
And you went to it?
So we went to it. And I got to tell you, I get all the... I get a lot of the pushback Amazon's getting right now. I get it. But it was my favorite grocery shopping experience ever. Here's what they had. They have these carts, right, that are like Knight Rider. It's like Kit. It's like Kit of grocery carts. So you get this
Hello,
cart.
John.
Yes, basically. So it has this big screen on the front where your handles are. And it says, oh, scan your Amazon Prime. And so I open up my Amazon Prime app, scan it, boom. It knows, okay, great, John, you're here shopping. Congratulations. So now around the exterior of the grocery cart is all sensors, right? So the moment I grab something from the grocery aisle and just drop it in the cart, as I'm dropping it in the cart, the sensors see the barcode. And instantly, boop, oh, you just put a 2-liter thing of milk in your cart. Great. It's also got a scale built into the cart. So I put in 5 apples. Boom. Oh, you put in 1.2 pounds of apples, this much. And if I decide later, you know what? I don't want to buy that Twix bar. I take the Twix bar out. Boom. Hey, you just took out Twix, and it takes it away. Then when I'm done, I just roll the cart out of the main shopping area, pick up my bags and go, and then it just charges my Amazon Prime account. It was my favorite grocery shopping experience ever. And I get it. Amazon is taking over the world and all that kind of stuff. But I do got to say, man, I love that shopping experience.
Here's what I would love is if I could program it to where it knew what I had coming up so that it could say, Aaron, you have an audition tomorrow morning. We think you should put back that 6-pack of Peroni. Aaron, according to the scale that we are connected with, you have gained 5 pounds. Do you really want to buy that gelato? Press yes or no. Enter your password. Enter your password in order to bypass the blocks that we have. Yeah.
What do those fridges do? Like if you put like an ice cream thing in, it makes a little oink sound at you.
Oh,
oink,
yes.
Oink, oink, oink.
I know.
It starts to shame you.
Right, because I don't necessarily need it to tell me you can't buy that gelato. I just wanted to go, hey, are you sure you want to buy that gelato? Yes, I'm eating my feelings. Fuck you, Amazon cart.
All I'm saying is your thighs are taking up my entire camera lens now.
Right.
I'm just saying. I mean, that would be something they could do.
Right, exactly.
Okay, sorry, let's keep going. Oh, crap, we had another jump again. Give me a second. Sorry, every once in a while this thing jumps and I got to reset it. MD, Eric C, Wakanda Forever. Where are we at? Okay, so we had that. Okay, now, yes, here we go. Mike Schwenk writes, one of two. Super excited to see what James Gunn will do with Suicide Squad, but I was just thinking back to when it was said that Warner Brothers was looking at Mel Gibson to direct it before landing Gunn. Yes. With how different / creative Warner Brothers and DC has been lately, do you think Mel Gibson could possibly be named director to a future DCEU film? If so, can you think of any character you would think his skills would be best for? For me, I would want him to do one that hasn't been done on the big screen yet. I remember, back when the report came out, and it was a real thing, that they were seriously looking at Mel Gibson to do a Suicide Squad. I'm not going to lie. I think that would have been a bonkers marriage. I think Mel Gibson directing something like that would have been crazy. If you watch Apocalypto.
Oh, God, what an incredible movie.
You watch Apocalypto and you think that dude directing, I mean, forget Braveheart and everything else, but you watch Apocalypto and go, that dude directing a Suicide Squad movie?
And even it wasn't The Last Temptation of Christ. Oh gosh, The Passion of the Christ.
Right.
Like, regardless of whatever you think about it from a religious perspective, I know it was very controversial. If you just take it as a film, I mean, first of all, it was brutal, so brutal. And so, I mean, just watching, Passion of the Christ, you go, yeah, he could handle some of the violent stuff for sure.
But Apocalypto's the one. That's the one to me that's like, that
beautiful storytelling.
Doing Suicide Squad would be nuts. And I was very excited for that. But, they went with James Gunn, who is like, hey, man, that's 1 and 1A. I mean, James Gunn is so good and it's so perfect for him, and it's going to be wonderful. And by the way, them announcing, did you see that news yesterday, by the way? That they officially announced a spin-off series on HBO Max of John Cena's character.
Yes, I did see that. I was wondering if you talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday.
Oh my God, I am already in. I mean, first of all, John Cena can do no wrong in my eyes. I will watch anything he is in. The outtakes, if you haven't seen it from Trainwreck, just go to YouTube and just type in Trainwreck John Cena outtakes. Tom and I watch it over and over and over again, and we laugh every single time. He is just so wonderful, and he does so many Make-A-Wishes. I was really bummed, actually, because I was like, I didn't realize that, like, I thought you had to actively be dying in order to get a Make-A-Wish. So I was like, wait a minute, I could have gotten a Make-A-Wish when I was going through cancer, and Tom was like, you weren't 12, calm down, you were like 40. And I was like, it doesn't matter. I didn't know that he just would do any Make-A-Wish that anybody asked him to. I want to go roller skating with John Cena.
You know, here's the thing. In the wrestling world, a lot of wrestling fans got turned off to John Cena a long time ago just because of the way they handled his character and everything. But he had continued to be one of the hardest working, most active, most dedicated dudes in the business. But what made people who hated him as a wrestler, he made it very difficult not to like him as a person, because I heard Triple H talk about the fact that there's never been anybody in the history of the WWE who does more charitable work. That is seriously a part of his schedule. There are kids out there who look up to me, and if there's a kid in a hospital that wants to meet me, I'm going to that hospital.
Well, Make-A-Wish so in general, in the entire Make-A-Wish organization, no one has ever done more Make-A-Wish appearances than John Cena.
He stays so active in that. It's hard not to like the dude.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just hard not to like him.
Yeah. And he's funny. Funny.
But to the question of which character should Mel Gibson direct, I mean, I don't know. I really don't. I mean, he's a great, skilled, fantastic storyteller. So you put any character in his hands, and I'll be down for seeing it. All right. Deep Questions writes, hey, John and Aaron. We know that that video killed the radio star, but now streaming is killing the video star. What future technology will one day kill the streaming star? Yeah, so like streaming is killing physical media. There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's not up for debate. You know, we can debate whether it should kill physical media. That's a valid debate to have. But it's not up for debate that it is killing physical media. I mean, the statistics and the sales numbers and all that kind of stuff do not lie. But what comes after streaming? I think we are at the end of that creative process line. You think something comes after streaming? What comes after? What could come along and replace streaming?
Honey, if I knew that, do you think that I would be here? I would be on my island, like, you know, being fed my custom pizzas that were created for me by Rachel Ray. No.
Beep, beep, beep. Do you really want to buy that custom pizza?
Pilot season is right around the corner, Aaron. You should not be eating pizza. Right. No, you know, there was this quote, and I wish I could remember who wrote it, but it was this, and I'm going to paraphrase it. But when the light bulb was invented, a very famous inventor said, "That's it. We have reached the top of what there is to create." You know, and I remember when I was a kid, you know, going to some like science and technology museum or whatever, and seeing something written that said there will be 200,000 jobs available in the year 2020 that we cannot even conceive of right now. And I was like, what could that possibly be? I mean, think about how, you know, if you were a layperson in the early 90s, and even though obviously the government knew about the internet, but like most of the rest of the population didn't know what the World Wide Web was or what its capabilities were. I mean, I remember watching an episode of The Jetsons, and Judy Jetson was having a conversation with someone with her face like on a screen. And I was like, that's crazy. Now we FaceTime, blah, 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 all the time, you know? And so it's like, yes, there will be something else because there's always something else. And if I knew what that something else was, I would be investing in the technology that's developing it right now. So I wish that I were smarter and could answer that question. In fact, John, I wish you were smarter and you could answer that question, because then I just ask you and invest with you as well.
I get told that all the time.
But it's going to happen. It is going to happen. There will be something else. And God bless whoever Emperor is figuring it out now. So if you think that we have reached the top, you are sadly wrong, and you will be just like me, broke as shit. No, I'm kidding.
I don't know, because like I think the only thing that could be left are variations of streaming. Like maybe at some point we can attach a probe to our side of our head and a movie will download into our brain. That is still just kind of a form of streaming. But I remember you mentioned the Jetsons. I remember the first time I saw something in a movie that was like FaceTiming. I think it was Aliens. Right, the beginning of Aliens, when Sigourney Weaver wakes up in her bed, she's talking to not Paul Rudd.
Paul Giamatti.
No. The guy from
Reiser?
Paul Reiser, thank you.
How did I get that?
Paul Reiser. And she's talking to Paul Reiser, and I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And yet here we are. We can do it all the time, and it is kind of nuts. Anyway, okay. To get Aaron overtime. We got to keep her overtime a little bit longer. We just got a couple more questions here.
Okay.
Let's see. The Wakandan Forever writes, we wrestling fans lost a true great, Road Warrior Animal. The Legion of Doom was always one of my favorite growing up. Like watching real-life superheroes. The costumes, face paint, the theme song were just awe-inspiring as a child. Oh, what a rush! You know, the Road Warriors were a pivotal moment of wrestling. Like, you didn't even have... The Road Warriors were kind of like Hulk Hogan. You could be somebody in our culture who knew nothing at the time about anything. You never watched a single frame of professional wrestling. But in that era, you probably heard of the Road Warriors, right? And they became super influential because all of a sudden a lot of tag teams later on were just carbon copies or duplicates of what the Road Warriors were. Demolition was just a huge carbon copy of what the Road Warriors were.
The Bushwhackers.
The Bushwhackers. But then you also got guys like Barbarian. There was this other tag team of Barbarian and this other guy that just looked like Nordic Viking warriors. But you had Barbarian and somebody. But there were a lot of tag teams that just kind of that took the template of the Road Warriors. And he passed away yesterday, and they were definitely a representation of an era. The soccer rights. So I watched Buried, and it awakened a much more intense form of claustrophobia in me than I had before. So that's nice.
Is that the one with Chris Evans?
No, that is the one with Ryan.
No, Ryan Reynolds.
Did you see that one?
I didn't, but you've talked about it. But one of my great fears is being buried alive. So I don't know if I could. Well, no, but like it's actually a thing. I'm not even claustrophobic, but
after you watch this one.
What was that? It was a Stephen King. It was a series, and a girl was in a prison. She was in a women's prison, and she convinces this elderly gentleman who like works the laundry to sneak her out. An elderly gentleman who works with any of the prisoners who pass away. He buries them, and so she does a deal with him, like, okay, you're gonna bury me, and then you'll come get me like the next day or later that night. And so she's in the coffin, and they bury them two at a time, like two people in one coffin. I know. Well, they were like, they weren't treating prisoners very well.
I'm not familiar with
and
that one.
So then she's there, and she has this lighter, and the very last moment is she flicks on the lighter to see who she's with, and she looks over, and it's the guy who's supposed to dig her out, and she just starts screaming. And I saw that when I was a kid, and I've been forever scarred.
Okay, I never want to watch that. But yes, I'm glad you watched it, Sock. But it will be claustrophobia inducing. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, "Hey John, Netflix giving us a few good movies lately with big budget and big stars, and all reviews like Enola Holmes and Devil All the Time. But I don't feel the urgency in me, you film fans, to watch these movies. Why
John,
is
your mic muted?
1 2 3 1 2 3. No, it looks like my mic's on.
Oh, okay.
1 2. I mean, it's registered.
Okay, yeah, it's back. I think there was a minute where your mic had gone off.
Why is this, and how can Netflix improve it? I think here's the problem. By the way, I watched Enola Holmes. I finally got around to watching Enola Holmes.
And?
What a boring piece of garbage. That movie. Look, let me temper that. Let me temper that. It is not one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Isn't it a TV show?
No. It's
Enola
the new
Holmes?
movie with the girl
Millie Bobby Brown.
Oh,
I thought it was a TV show.
It's got like the bad guy from The Expanse in it. It's got Henry Cavill is in it, who plays Sherlock Holmes, and Millie Bobby Brown is actually really quite good in it. And obviously Henry Cavill's good in it and all that kind of stuff. But I just found the movie to be so unrelentingly boring. Like me, Ann, and Corey last night. Like Corey came over last night. We all said, "Hey, let's watch Enola Holmes." Okay, I didn't like the trailer, but I love Henry Cavill, so let's watch this thing. Unbelievably boring. And listen, I'm about to spoil something about Enola Holmes. Okay, I'm about to spoil something. So if you're interested in watching Enola Holmes, I'll do this when you can unmute your computer. Okay, I'll do this when you can unmute your computer. Okay, here it is. So for those of you who've seen it, I mean, all the trailers and the whole first act of the movie is gotta find my mom, gotta find my mom. The whole trailer is about my mom's gone missing, gotta find my mom. And nothing to do with it. And then the mom just shows up at the end. She just shows up. Hi. Like, I think he's just like, I mean, really? And it became this really ridiculous sidetrack story. I don't know. I thought it was quite lame, but for whatever reason, you can turn your mics back. You can turn your speakers back on. For whatever reason, though, a lot of the critics are really liking it.
I've been reading that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, fair enough. That's why I watch it. But I'm like, this is poor. Again, I think I'm overstating it as if it's like one of the biggest pieces of garbage ever. It's not, and it definitely has its upside. Millie Bobby Brown is actually quite good. You know what? If this movie had been more, the scenes that really worked were when Millie Bobby Brown and Henry Cavill are on screen together. When they're on screen together, it really worked. They're on screen together for about 5 minutes of the movie. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Which is fine. The movie is Enola Holmes. It's not Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
I get that. But this movie was singing because the chemistry between Millie Bobby Brown and Sherlock, his brother and sister, those scenes were great. There's about 5 minutes of it. And everything else didn't work. And I didn't like this other kid that was playing opposite Millie Bobby Brown. And whatever. Everybody else liked it, so that's fine.
Well, the good news is that you can probably see Millie Bobby Brown and Henry Cavill in a romantic story that they'll be filming in 5 years anyway.
That's unfair. That's unfair. Oh, I thought you were making a jab of like, there was the joking around that, hey, Henry likes to date like younger on the age scale. I thought you were making fun
of I don't no. I was actually making fun of Hollywood constantly casting like May December romances. I don't know anything about Henry Cavill's interest.
He never dated anybody underage. It's just that there was this thing going around for a while that he just liked to date younger on the age scale. That's all.
I don't know. I never.
It's not like Henry Cavill's 55. I mean, come on, give Henry some love. Cut Henry some slack.
I know that Henry is like your greatest crush ever. I'm literally making a commentary about the May December.
If I were to have a bromance, I won't deny my bromance would probably be with Henry Cavill. I'm not going to lie about that. But don't.
Tom's is Sir Patrick Stewart, which is super weird. But then again, mine's Helen Mirren, so whatever.
I know I bring this up all the time, but one of my favorite, funniest Helen Mirren moments, not in person, I've ever had. Me and Ann were having dinner with Chris Carr and her husband Logan. And
Chris Carr and her husband Logan, who have never invited me and Tom to dinner. Just want to clarify that.
Once. We only went for dinner once.
Chris Carr, why don't I get a dinner invite?
So we're out for dinner with Chris Carr, and for whatever reason, and we were in downtown Disney. We went to downtown Disney. There's that like.
That's a long way to go for dinner.
We were both out there for something. Ann and I were there, I think, for D23 or something, and then her and Logan were also out there.
Oh, fun.
And so we arranged to have dinner at downtown Disney. We went to that, that one restaurant in downtown Disney that's kind of like Mardi Gras or New Orleans. It's kind of a New Orleans jazz feel to it. But anyway.
I know the place that has the bread bowl inside of Disney.
Right, but no, this is out in downtown Disney. This is outside of Disney Park itself.
Not the Tiki Hut.
No, not Tiki Hut. But we're having dinner there, and just something came up. I don't know how, but celebrity crushes came up. And we were talking about it, and I'm like, so like, Logan, what's your, and Chris just starts shaking her head. And Chris just goes, it's Helen Mirren. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, Helen Mirren is like it for him. I'm not. Helen Mirren is it for him.
Yeah,
and I turn to Logan and I say, really, Helen Mirren, who is a gorgeous, beautiful woman. So it's Chris that says Helen Mirren. And I look over, Logan, really, Helen Mirren? Logan goes, I would fuck her till her hip broke. Ann and I just about died. Like, I just about fell out of my chair. I laughed so hard. It was like one of the funniest things I had heard all year. I just thought there was like this dead seriousness in his eyes. Like Helen Mirren is the goddess we should all worship, sort of thing. It was...
I'm sure Logan would love the idea of you telling that story on the show.
I just thought it was the funny. I mean, Logan, I don't know if you've ever met Logan. Did you ever meet Chris's husband?
She's never introduced him to me.
He's a funny dude.
She's keeping him from me.
I actually think he does some stand-up comedy. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. I think he actually does some stand. He is a funny dude. I really find him very funny. Anyway, all right. Oh, we should let you go, but let's do one more question before we let you go.
Is it a question that has anything to do with anything that I can answer?
I don't know. We'll find out. I'm Batman writes, should I cancel my AMC A-list?
Yeah.
I signed back up when the theaters reopened, but it looks like the movies are getting pushed. We'll have to wait 6 months to sign back up. Here's the thing, though. The thing is, AMC has frozen all the AMC A-list stuff. So you're not paying for it right now. And if you paid in advance for it or something like that, then you're going to get credit for all your time. Right now, recently AMC sent out an email to all their A-list people saying, hey, we'll start back up A-list in, I think they said December or something. But if theaters get closures and new movies don't come out, I expect them to push it even more. So my recommendation, and Aaron, I'd be curious to know what you say about this. My recommendation is you don't need to cancel it. I don't think there's any need to cancel it. I think you're perfectly good. Just leave it because it's frozen. It's not costing you anything, and it'll be there when you want to go back and use it again. So I would suggest don't cancel it. That's my thing anyway. Aaron, what would you do?
Well, if that's the case, I mean, same thing. Like right now, I have a frozen gym membership because we, can't go to the gym and it's not costing us anything to freeze it. And if we were to cancel it, then try to get a new membership when everything eventually, if it ever does open back up again, we would end up having to pay more money for a new one. So I don't necessarily know if AMC is planning on doing that. I can't imagine that they would say, hey, if you want to join now, it's going to cost you more money, because they're going to be wanting people to sign up. But yeah, if it's not costing you anything to keep the membership frozen and you're not paying for it, then there's no sense in canceling it.
All right. In the meantime, Aaron, thanks so much for being here today. Always great to have you in on Thursdays. But in the meantime, where can people follow you online?
You can come follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Aaron L. Cummings. And another reminder, if you would be so kind to do so, visit my Twitter. You can get my husband, Tommy Degnan's Twitter handle. Today is his birthday. It would mean so much to me if you could just wish him a happy birthday.
Yeah. What's his Twitter handle?
It's at Tommy, Tommy, Degnan, D-E-G, N as in Nancy, A-N. Degnan, which is a shockingly difficult name for people to get. I went from Cummings, which was already really bad for one reason, to Degnan, which is really bad for another reason. But yes, come visit me on Twitter and Instagram, and take care of yourselves and each other, and be nice.
All right. Thanks a lot, Aaron. And we will talk to you again
Yay,
soon. Take
bye.
care. All right, guys. We still have time here, so we're going to keep firing through your questions. And we're going to keep things rolling here with one from, that was I'm Batman. Now we're going to go to Eric C., who writes, can you give your definitive definition of the term underrated? I am tired of people saying movies like Hell or High Water is underrated when it's rated high on Metacritic and nominated for Oscars. It's underwatched. It's underwatched for how good it is, not underrated. No, I agree. I believe they're underappreciated. I use underappreciated and underrated as two different terms. Underrated is when, there's a movie that a lot of people don't care much for, for whatever reason. That's why I call Man of Steel the most underrated comic book film of all time. A lot of people don't think much of Man of Steel. I call it the most underrated film of all time. However, I wouldn't call a movie like Hell or High Water, who everybody who saw it raved about it, just not a lot of people saw it. Well, it's not underrated. It is appreciated for how good it is by those who have seen it. But it's underappreciated because people haven't seen it. So people haven't given it the appreciation to check it out and see it. So it's not been given the exposure it deserved, or it's underappreciated. It's certainly underwatched. But yeah, I personally, I agree with you, Eric. I kind of separate underrated from underappreciated. Underrated means the people who have seen it didn't like it. And I think it was quite great. So therefore, that's what underrated means. And now underrated will be different from person to person, because I say Superman or Man of Steel is underrated. Somebody else who saw Superman and thought it was terrible saying, no, Campea, you're overrating it. And that's how it goes. So it's a very subjective term, but that's how I kind of approach it, Eric. It's a good thing to point out. Okay, next up. Eric also writes, have you officially given up on Dark after the first episode, considering you have talked about many other new shows you are currently watching? I loved it and felt like this is a show that you and Ann would have a great discussion on each other's theories. I have not given up on Dark, but I will say, after only watching one episode, I didn't feel that like really urging need to get to episode 2. And then shows like, you know, Lovecraft comes out, and then shows like The Boys comes out, and a few others, or Ted Lasso, I should say, comes out, and these shows that did hook me from episode 1. And so I have not given up on Dark, because everybody talks about how great Dark is, and I didn't dislike episode 1. Don't get me wrong, I didn't dislike episode 1, but by the time episode 1 was done, I didn't feel like, oh my God, I got to get to the next episode. So I thought, yeah, I'll watch episode 2 in a few days, and then other things come up and other things have taken its place in line. But everybody talks about how good the show is, so I will get back to it. I've not officially given up, but it is on the back burner right now. I'll just have to get around to it when I get a chance to. All right, fair question, Eric. MD writes, 1 of 2. I was randomly thinking of frequent actor/director collaborators, so here's a scenario for you. 4 new projects are announced by some well-known collaborators. Which piques your interest or excites you the most? Film number 1, Frances McDormand and Steve Buscemi and John Goodman. Directed by the Coen brothers. Film 2, Owen Wilson, Bill Murray for a Wes Anderson film. Number 3, DiCaprio and De Niro for a Martin Scorsese film. Number 4, Matt Damon, George Clooney in a Steven Soderbergh film. Ooh, by the way, all have done 5+ projects together. Okay. That's a good one. That's a good one. I think I will have to go. I know this is probably the one that more people will go with, and maybe it sounds a little stereotypical to say it, but I will go with the DiCaprio, De Niro, Scorsese. I mean, that's a killer's row of talent right there. So I will go with DiCaprio and De Niro in a Martin Scorsese film. That's one. I mean, these are all great. These are all great, but I think that's one I'd lead towards. Great one, MD. I like that one. All right. Lee Crow writes, regarding Richard Ganther's comment yesterday about Solo being more loved as a book rather than a movie, I'd like to point out there are 2 major issues with the movie the book wouldn't suffer. First, if we all read a book instead, a young Harrison Ford is playing Solo in your mind. Yes, that's true. A young Billy D. Williams is playing Lando, and a young Peter Mayhew is playing Chewbacca. You've pointed out this main issue with the movie many times, but I did think Alden Ehrenreich did great. I thought Alden Ehrenreich did great too. I really did. 3, the second major issue was the director problem. Ron Howard had no idea what it's like to grow up as a scum rat on Corellia. Yep. Yeah, that's his thing. Ron Howard shouldn't have directed it. He doesn't know what it's like to be a smuggler out there on the outer rim. He doesn't know what it's like to grow up, like in an Aladdin term, as a street rat on Corellia. No, that's a good point. But no, that's actually a good point. One of the things about the books are, in any book, is that you get to paint your own picture in your head, right? When we're reading a book, you get to, or even listening to an audiobook, you get to paint the visual image in your own mind, right? And so what happens a lot, I think one of the reasons a lot of people go, when a movie is based on a novel, go, the movie wasn't as good as a book. I think there are the 2 main reasons for that is, number 1, yeah, you read a 500-page book. It had to be adapted down to a 110-page screenplay. So it didn't have everything that I love in the books. And so you get mad at it. But the other thing is that I often attribute it to is that, yeah, well, when somebody's reading the book, they are painting all the scenes in their head. And then so they have a certain expectation. Then when you come to the movie, it doesn't look like or sound like it did in your head. And, you know, that's one of the reasons I'm susceptible to that too. That's why I have a rule that if there is a movie coming out for a book that I haven't read yet, I will not read the book first. The only time I've broken that rule was when the Hunger Games movies were coming and I decided, you know what, I'm going to read the Hunger Games books. And that's the only time I broke that rule. And I regretted doing it because I suffered from some of that. It's like, this didn't look like the way I pictured it in my head. And you know what? So that's one of the reasons why I avoid that personally. But you're right. For some people, it would have been Harrison Ford in their imagination reading the book. So you're right. That's a good thing, legitimate thing to point out, Lee. All right, next up. Isaac Beebe writes, "Hey, John, I was just thinking how we have not had a sequel to Zootopia yet. The first film was amazing and the best critically rated animated film of 2016, and it even made $1 billion at the box office. Why has Disney not moved on a sequel yet?" I think that's a great question. And you know what? It's the same thing that came up with, because let me just double check here. It was the same situation with Wreck-It Ralph. Because Wreck-It Ralph came out in 2012. Wreck-It Ralph came out in 2012. Wreck-It Ralph was wonderful. It made a decent amount of money, but everybody loved it. They waited 6 years. I thought they waited too long. I really do. Because Wreck-It Ralph 2 was not quite as good as Wreck-It Ralph 1, but Wreck-It Ralph 2 was really good. But it did not do as well at the box office as a lot of people hoped it would. And I think part of the reason for that was they just flat out waited too long. But they did. They waited 6 years before putting out Wreck-It Ralph 2. I honestly don't know why they haven't moved on Zootopia, on another Zootopia. Because it's not like, well, there's no more story to tell. That world, now I'll admit, I don't love Zootopia. Zootopia is not like one of my all-time favorite animated films. I liked it. I liked it quite a bit, but I didn't love it like a lot of people do. But the fact is, a lot of people love that movie. And you created a world in that movie where there are a lot of stories you could tell. And I'm with you. I mean, you could make the argument they've been busy with their other original films. Okay, I get that. But yeah, it's already been 4 years. You're in a pandemic right now, but you can still, you don't have to be on set to work on this movie. I hope they don't wait 6 like they did for Wreck-It Ralph 2, but I don't know, maybe they're just not going to do one at all. It's a great question. All right, next up. Ben Rayner writes, "Hey, John, it's been a minute. Sad news. I heard Pizza the Hut is dead. Yeah, I heard he ate himself to death." Yeah. You taste delicious, boss. I mean, I love that movie so much. I love Spaceballs so much. If you haven't watched Spaceballs, you absolutely should. Okay, we had another jump. Hold on a second. There we go. Back up to it now. We're at F Stormfront writes, 12 films that I deem unwatchable in no particular order. All Eyes on Me. Yeah, we were just talking about All Eyes on Me. I didn't think that one did the legacy of Tupac any justice at all. Mordecai, absolutely agree. Doolittle. Year One was terrible. I don't know what BAPS is. Transformers 5. I think just about every Transformers movie after the first Transformers movie and before Bumblebee, unwatchable. Christmas with the Cranks. Toys. I didn't hate Toys. I'll admit I didn't hate Toys. Fantastic Four. You know what? I don't think that is a completely unwatchable movie. I think the first act of that film is actually pretty good. I think the first act of Fantastic Four is actually pretty good. It just, the wheels come off it after that. That's My Boy. Man, that and the one where Adam Sandler plays twins, probably the two worst Adam Sandler movies ever. Leonard Part 6 and Movie 43. One of the very few movies in my life that I walked out of was Movie 43. What the F was any of that? Any of these stand out to you? They all say, again, I don't think Fantastic Four, I think it was bad, but I don't think it was unwatchable. I didn't think Toys was unwatchable, but yeah, and I don't know what BAPS is. But yeah, for the rest of them, totally with you on those ones, Stormfront. Totally with you on those ones. All right, Sam writes, I kind of had a feeling, despite Warner Brothers and HBO denying that that Snyder Cut was eventually going to have additional photography, I still can't buy the Reynolds Green Lantern comeback rumor. No, I wouldn't believe that one either. But I would be so shocked if that were true. Yeah, I wouldn't believe that at all. Don't listen to that at all. But it's such a bonkers time. You got to understand it's not impossible. So I would bet $20 that Ryan Reynolds rumor is complete bullshit. Absolutely, that Ryan Reynolds thing is complete bullshit. But would I bet $1,000 on it? Oh, I don't know that I'd bet $1,000 on it, because however unlikely, to quote Star Wars, there is a chance, however unlikely, that in today's world, who knows, man? Who knows? Never would have thought we'd see Ezra Miller, the woman choker, pop up in Crisis on Infinite Earths and have flash. Never would have thought that would have happened, because Warner Brothers used to have this rule. Absolutely keep the movie universe and the TV universe separate. Then they did that. So anything's possible. But yeah, I would put $20 on it being total bullshit. All right. Gabriel writes, loved your take on the Ron Howard situation. An example of why you are right is Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. He came to Puerto Rico to cast the film and spent the time visiting the National University and learning about our culture. Excited to see it. I mean, it's hard for me to say that the Steven Spielberg situation is a good example, only because I haven't seen his West Side Story yet. And now we're not going to get to see it for another almost year and a half. Because they also pushed, when they pushed Black Widow, they also pushed West Side Story to the December of 2021. So they pushed it pretty much a full year. So it's going to be a while. So I don't know if that's a good, but at least I get the principle of, like, yeah, he went to make sure he understood what was going on there. It's a good example. All right. Preston the Kryptonian writes, hey, John, the other day you listed some of your top underrated films of all time. Man of Steel, top underrated comic book films of all time. These are my 3 top underrated comic book films of all time. Man of Steel and Captain America 1 being 2 of them. That made me think of origin story movies. What's your favorite out of any movie? Mine's Captain America 1 and Batman Begins. Those are 2 very, very good ones. The first Thor movie isn't an origin story, because Thor's already been Thor for over 1,000 years by the time we get to Thor 1. Honestly, one of my absolute favorite origin story superhero movies isn't even a comic book movie. It's Chronicle. Speaking of Fantastic Four, director Josh Trank's fantastic film, Chronicle, to me is like a brilliant example of a superhero origin story movie. I think that one is a brilliant example of a superhero origin story movie. So yeah, I think that's the, I think that's one I might lean towards. I mean, Batman Begins is a fantastic origin movie. The Captain America, the First Avenger, one of the most, I'd say the 3rd most underrated comic book movie of all time. Terrific one. Absolutely. But when I think of truly amazing origin story ones, I keep going to Chronicle. But then, anyway, that's just me. All right. We are out of time, but I'm going to take TJ's got a long one here. So let's get through Mr. TJ Lynn's one. And we've got John, long time. I have been away from the show because of some factors. Hey, my boss finally, really? Because I feel like I see you keep popping up. Anyway, my boss finally had to cut our salary as a tutor after he maintained the same amount for months with less revenue in his pandemic. That was good of him. B, my boss and I are now developing an educational software project where I was made a co-founder, and I'm in charge with technical lead. So I have to get back to coding and also hiring programmers to help me work on this project. That sounds exciting. It's tough, challenging, time consuming, but also exciting. There's been great development in the world of software development since I left the profession 10 years ago and becoming a math tutor. For any time I left was for entertainment. I use it to watch political pundit shows on YouTube because it's getting close to election time. Despite that, I'm not American and I don't live there anymore. Politics of the US are quite fascinating to me, sometimes in a good way, sometimes bad. Question: if there's a movie about the current President of the United States, would you prefer an actor who can mimic him in an appearance and how he talks or sounds like, or any actor that doesn't necessarily look anything like him, but in a caliber of, say, a Leonardo DiCaprio? Well, I mean, the answer to that is, I believe it's really much like, you don't have to pick one or the other. The answer to that is you basically do what you did with Jamie Foxx and Ray, right? There are things you can do to make him look like the person you want portrayed in a movie, right? There's makeup, there's wigs, there's a lot of things you can do to make him look more like that person. It's not like you have to do, hey, let's get Jason Momoa to play Donald Trump in a movie. You don't have to. So there's many things you can do to get a closer physical appearance of somebody without having to find an actor who just, well, we have to find an actor who just naturally looks like the person we want them to play. No, you don't have to do that. There's a lot that you can do. And so I don't think it's an either or situation, TJ. I think there is a both and option there. I think there very, very much is a both and option. And I think they'll get it. I think they'll get it. I really do. Anyway, guys, and by the way, that project you're working on sounds tremendously exciting. Congratulations on that. That sounds great. But all right, guys, we have gone overtime here, so we've got to wrap it up here today. There are still a number of questions. Actually, there's more than usual amount of questions we still haven't had time to get to, but don't worry, guys. Tomorrow is Friday. We'll spend most of tomorrow's show going through all the live chats. We'll get through all of them tomorrow. So if you have one that you sent in, because I think there's a good 10 or 15 still left over here. If you had one that you sent in that we have not addressed yet, don't worry, it's not getting overlooked. We will make sure we get caught up on those starting first thing off on tomorrow's show. So when we get to the live questions part of tomorrow's show, yours will be the first ones that get answered. Yours and I'm Batman's, who just sent one in as well. So your questions will be the first one that get answered, and we'll make sure tomorrow that we get through all of them, and we'll get through them and get them all done. But for now, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Obviously, thank you to Aaron Cummings and little Joey Bishop for being here. It always makes me smile when Joey Bishop comes walking through my door and when Aaron Cummings comes walking through our doors as well. And a special thank you to all you guys who sent in these live questions for two reasons. Number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us here on the show, thank you guys very much for that. Guys, remember to do the four main important things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until tomorrow, bye-bye.